Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
On today's episode, we are going to rank all 14 teams in the ACC. Be sure to let us know in the comments below your thoughts on our rankings, any disagreements you have. But Trey, we all agreed on number 14.
Yeah, had to go with Duke. Sorry, Blue Devils. Mike Elko, he's taken the reins coming in from A&M as their defensive coordinator. And really, this is one of the toughest jobs, not only in the ACC, but really in the country. Cutcliffe, he finished 10-25 towards the end of his run. And when you just look at last year, I mean, the offense, it only averaged 15 points per game in conference, and they even lost some key pieces to that group. So, I mean, they return a lot on the O-line. So, you know, I'm hoping at least they can build around that, and the offense could show at least a little bit of life with either Riley Leonard or Jordan Moore back at quarterback. The defensive side, they weren't exactly great there either, but I do trust Elko to at least generate a little bit of excitement there. Not much, but they do have an experienced front seven to build off of, maybe generate some pressure. So you just got to give Elko some time.
Yeah, tough one for Mike Elko to walk into. But if at the end of the year we do this list and they're not 14th, then I'll say good job by Mike Elko. You know.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to number 13 here. Maybe not too much further ahead, is Georgia Tech. It's just not a whole lot of hope now for Georgia Tech fans and Jeff Collins, the head coach. 3-9 last year, 3 wins in his 3 years there he's been right now, I believe. They're 119th in returning production, so not much faith in that. Their best offensive player transferred to Bama, the running back Jahmyr Gibbs. The defense lost some guys to transfer, so they're going to be young again. Really, their only hope is for the defense to be super opportunistic with turnovers and somehow be good in that category. And for Jeff Sims, the quarterback, coming back for his third year, for him to just take a huge leap. I mean, they need him to be elite and be able to carry them because around him is just not a ton. So, and then you look at the schedule. I mean, they have a brutal non-conference. Ole Miss, at Central Florida, and at Georgia. I mean, what are you doing, Georgia Tech? You're just sabotaging yourself, man.
That's
like, why? So, yeah, it's tough for them.
All right, number 12, we have Virginia Tech. They are not used to being this low on lists like this. Brent Pry does not inherit a great roster. Justin Fuente had some lean years in recruiting, had some guys transfer out, so just not the best situation. They do bring in Grant Wells, a quarterback from Marshall, as a transfer who is not bad, but needs to work on the interceptions. That's definitely an issue. And I'm not thrilled with the pieces around him. I don't think he has a ton of talent around him, especially up front, questionable offensive line. So not super hopeful on the offense. Defense should be much improved with a good amount returning, but still probably won't be great. So I think the schedule does give an opportunity to at least have, you know, a decent amount of wins. Like a bowl game is certainly could be in the cards. I think 7-5 should be the goal for Brent Pry.
That'd be a nice year.
Number 11, Syracuse. Now's the time for Dino Babers. We've talked often on our podcast about how much goodwill that one great season sandwiched between some of the lean bad years got him. They have one of the best running backs in college football, one of the funniest guys on Twitter, Sean Tucker. You got Garrett Schrader coming back at quarterback. He really needs to elevate his game, though. He threw for under 100 yards in 3 of his last 4 starts, and as a team, they were 121st in pass offense, so that needs to take a dramatic step up if they want to have a little bit more explosive offense. But I will say, to his credit, Schrader, he's very good with his legs. I just don't know if that offense can make up for what could be a potential defensive regression. They don't have a ton of returning production in the trenches, but that being said, the back end should be pretty good, or at least more of the strength of that side. Mikael Jones anchors the linebacking core. You got Marlo Wax and Stephon Thompson there. So that unit itself will be one of the better ones in the ACC. But the thing is you look at their schedule, it's super tough. They have a stretch of NC State, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Pitt in a 4-week run. So Babers might need to get an upset or two in that run.
if is a bowl game the only way he saves his job? Do you guys think? Get to 6 wins?
I'm not convinced that 5-7 automatically means he's fired, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's lasted a while, so I guess I could see that. But man, they do have a decent amount of production overall coming back, so it's a big year for Babers. All right, moving on. Number 10, we have Virginia. So last year, Virginia, a really great offense, and they return quarterback Brennan Armstrong, the lefty, and they return a really good wide receiver unit. A lot of good players there. Dontavian Wicks, Billy Kemp, Keaton Thompson. They all combined for nearly 3,000 yards last year. Plus, they add in Lavelle Davis, who was injured all of last year and had a really good 2020. So I mean, they got their receiving core is arguably maybe the best in the ACC.
Yeah.
So QB's good, receivers are good, but that's really it, man. I mean, the offensive line loses all 5 starters. They didn't run the ball well at all last year, anyways. So bad offensive line probably. Running backs not that great, and then you flip to the defense. It was bad last year. I don't see it taking a big jump this year. They lose some key pieces, and there's just not going to be a whole lot that they gain. So I don't know. I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back, just because I think the defense will be a little bit worse. Offensive line is going to be even worse. Brendan Armstrong is going to have a tougher time. So even though they have some good skill players but it's not going to be enough. So that's why they dropped down to 10 now.
Okay, number 9,
we'll see
have
what Tony
Boston.
Elliott does in his first year.
Yeah, true. Yeah, new system.
All right, number 9, Boston College. I think this team has a chance to surprise some people because Phil Dracovic got injured in Game 2 last year, and then even when he came back later in the season was not 100%. So there's quite a drop-off when he's out, down to Dennis Grosel. So if he's fully healthy and he's able to stay in the whole year, I think this is a completely different team. He's got Zay Flowers, his top target, back. He could have transferred, opted not to. The O-line could hold them back. There's definitely a lot of question marks across the offensive front, so that's maybe why they're not higher on this list. But I will say Jeff Hafley apparently really likes what he has on the defensive side of the ball, so that group should be improved.
They were good last year, actually.
Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah.
Moving to number 8, North Carolina. The talent that's been recruited should, ideally for Tar Heel fans, start to show life this season. I'm kind of banking on the offense to be good with Phil Longo. After last year, kind of disappointing, particularly due to bad offensive line play. That's what really hindered them last year for Sam Howell. This year, it's up to Drake May or Jacoby Criswell, but they get to throw it to one of the best receivers in the ACC, Josh Downs. At running back, British Brooks, he finished the year great. They also got a freshman, George Petaway, who could be one of those young guys that could push for time and break through this year. The challenge, though, is the defensive side. Gene Chizik comes in as the defensive coordinator after being off for a while, and he really hasn't fielded a good defense in years. And the Tar Heels they were pretty pathetic last year on defense. And so this is really where the youth and good recruiting needs to develop. Miles Murphy on the line could break out. Cedric Gray comes back at linebacker. He led the team in tackles. At corner, Tony Grimes, he broke out a couple years ago, but he couldn't quite match it last year. If he gets back to what he showed a couple years ago and up to that potential, him and Storm Duck, if they could lock down the corner positions and lock down some receivers, could be a decent back end. But we just got to see if the potential comes to fruition. And then just looking at their schedule, they have a soft first few games before they host Notre Dame. And if they could spring that upset, that could springboard them to, having a nice bounce back season for Mac Brown.
Yeah, they need it. Who knows? It could pan out. But isn't it interesting that there's 2 Miles Murphys in the Carolinas, both on the defensive line?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a double take there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to number 7. We have Florida State. And some people are pretty high on the Seminoles heading into this year, and there's reasons why. I'll give them that. They're 16th in returning production, and they bring in some talented transfers to boot. But me personally, I don't know. I don't see them being a whole lot better than last year. I don't think Jordan Travis is a good enough passer for that offense to like truly take off. I still think they're going to be limited because of the lack of passing game that they're going to have. They also lose Joshua Corbin, who led the team in rushing last year, and he led the team in receptions. That's a decent sized hit. Defense, it should be solid, but the defensive line, I think people are underestimating maybe a couple losses they had on there, especially their two defensive ends, Jermaine Johnson and Kier Thomas. They combined for 112 tackles last year, 30 tackles for loss, and 18 and a half sacks. That's a major, amount of production that they're losing along that defensive front. They bring in a transfer from Maine, but it's Maine. Or I'm sorry, from Albany.
Albany, yeah.
It's Northeast, yeah. Northeast, sorry. Sorry, Jared Verse. But anyways, so, you add that into a tough schedule, a really tough schedule. I don't know. I think Florida State might be fighting for bowl eligibility down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, the schedule is brutal, but I think Trey and I were a bit higher on Florida State. I know I think sounds like I'm a bit higher on the offense, on Jordan Travis, if he's able to stay healthy than you are. But a lot of good teams in the ACC, so I can see why they ended up 7th. Number 6, we have Wake Forest coming off of an 11-3 season, and the offense should be great again. Brings almost everyone back. A.T. Perry, top receiver back. Of course, the quarterback, Sam Hartman, is the leader. Even return a couple starters from injury, so offense is great, no question. Defense was terrible last year. They did have some bad injury luck, so maybe some better luck this year will help. And I really like the defensive coordinator hire, Brad Lambert, coming in from Purdue. I think he could help things. So I mean, it's not going to be a great defense, but maybe improved. The reason they're not
just needs to be decent.
Yeah, the reason they're not higher on this list is that they were pretty fortunate to have the record they had last year. They definitely outperformed the underlying metrics, so maybe not starting from quite as high as a baseline as the record might indicate.
Yep. Number 5, Louisville. And it's kind of a make or break season for Scott Satterfield, but I'm liking this team. Malik Cunningham, one of the most exciting quarterbacks, not only in the ACC, but the entire country. He's underrated as a passer. He averaged over 320 per game a season ago. And we obviously all know how dangerous he is on the ground. He threw for almost 3,000. He did run for over 1,000 yards and had 20 rushing touchdowns, which is just astounding. They are relying on a couple transfers at receiver, but they have one of the best tight ends out there, Marshawn Ford. Overall, I'm not concerned. Cunningham and Satterfield usually put on some strong offenses, especially with 4 starters back on the O-line. It's, again, kind of a theme here. The defense hasn't necessarily been their strength. That needs to show some signs of life and improve. I mean, it did a little bit last year, but needs to take another step forward. If they do, they have the potential to win the division. Linebacker is their strength. Yasir Abdullah, he was second team All ACC, really quick, good at getting to the passer. The secondary is a veteran group. They added some help via transfer as well there. Keitrell Clark is the main guy. He locks down one of the corner spots, been productive the last couple seasons. They just need that D-line to step up, generate a little bit more pressure. Guys like Yaya Diaby on the edge need to get some more stops and tackles for loss for Brian Brown, the D coordinator. But the reason I like them is because their schedule isn't as hard as some of the others. They get most of their tough conference games at home, so if they defend the home field, they could be in the mix.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Louisville. I think they're going to be pretty darn good this year. I think people are underestimating.
I'm very high on them as well.
Yeah. I think their defense is going to be improved, and Cunningham's just always good. So, yep. All right, moving on. We got number 4. We have Pittsburgh. Yes, they lose Biletnikoff winner Jordan Addison. He transferred to USC, and they lose the Heisman finalist at quarterback Kenny Pickett to hometown Pittsburgh Steelers. But the rest of the roster still looks pretty good. The entire offensive line is back. Their running backs return, which they have a pretty solid stable of backs. They got a good tight end coming back. Jared Wayne's a nice receiver. Not a whole lot of depth maybe at receiver, especially after losing Addison, but I think they're still going to be fine. The defense has more than a handful of ACC, all ACC selections, talent galore on that defense, led by the defensive tackle Kalijah Cansey. So I think they're going to be even better on defense than they were last year. The big question for Pitt this year, of course, is the quarterback position, and Keaton Slovis in particular, the USC transfer coming in. If he's healthy and kind of regains the form that he had a couple years back, then Pitt, I mean, they have a legit chance to win the Coastal, maybe even the favorite if Slovis is really good. So, but even if he's just like kind of like he was last year or the year before, just kind of decent, then Pitt still has a chance to win because the Coastal's not very good. I mean, if Miami doesn't pan out, then it's really wide open because there's not a whole lot of strength there. So that's the reason why I like Pitt. They got a lot coming back and the weak division.
Yeah, I have a feeling if Jordan Addison were still there, Pitt might have been flip-flop here because we're about to get to number 3, Miami. We have 3rd, but that was very close vote. Mario Cristobal takes over a pretty good roster. He inherits Tyler Van Dyke. Maybe, I mean, if he plays anything like he did last year, then he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Yeah. Should lead a good offense. If some young receivers step up, I think losing Charleston Rambo and Mike Harley, that combo is pretty big. So we'll see. They have talent there. On defense, they've got an experienced secondary, and I think the front six should be pretty good. Should be pretty sick with all the transfers that they brought in. Plus, 5-star Leonard Taylor could have a breakout season this year. So, yeah, they are our slight favorite in the Coastal.
Yep. Number 2, NC State. The Wolfpack, one of the most experienced teams in the country. They went 9-3, might have a chip on their shoulder after getting the late scratch in the Holiday Bowl in their attempt to win, a record 10th game for them. Devin Leary, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. 35 touchdowns, 5 picks. I know replacing Emezi on the outside won't be easy, but Leary's experience and his continued growth, I think, will make guys like Thayer Thomas, Devin Carter, they'll just elevate their games and break out. My biggest concern on offense is getting more out of the run game, as that was one of the weaker parts a year ago. And then you look defensively, they're one of the best in the ACC. Peyton Wilson and Drake Thomas form easily what could be one of the best linebacker duos in the nation. As a defense, they were decimated by injury, yet they still held teams to less than 20 points per game, and I think they could improve on that this year. They were, on top of or near the top of most defensive categories in the league. They get Corey Durden back at tackle. The secondary is filled with potential all-ACC players, including Tanner Ingle at safety, Shaheem Battle at corner, to name a couple. I mean, so really, if they can stay healthy and continue to develop, I like this NC State team, and the division and the ACC could potentially come down to their matchup at Clemson on October 1st.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear on the NC State. It's really comes down to their skill talent on offense to me. I think the offensive lines will be fine, and of course Devin Leary is going to be fine. But can they find a running back? They lost Bam Knight, Ricky Person, So and Emeka Emezi, or I might have said that wrong, but if they can have a little more explosiveness with those guys, the guys replacing them, then they're going to be right there with Clemson. Which we'll move on to number 1. We'll got Clemson, of course. They're the most talented team in the conference, and they're going to be clearly led by their defense, which could be the best in the country. And I think they have the best defensive line in the country. 6, maybe even 7 guys that are going to be playing on that D-line could get drafted just next year in the NFL draft if they all decide to go pro. But they're stacked there. Linebackers should be great, but the question on the defense, there's really only one question, and that's at corner. They lost a few key pieces there, but if that's all you're worried about, then you're going to be fine. They're going to have pressure. They're going to be able to stop the run. Linebackers great. Safeties are returning, so I think they'll be more than fine there. Clemson, their main concern is their offense. Unfortunately, they were 100th in total offense last year. That is just crazy for a team that's that talented. DJ Uiagalelei, can he get back to his form? Those 2 games that he had in 2020, he needs a bounce back, no doubt about it. It would help if he had some receivers step up. But if you look around the offense, most of the guys come back, which to me is actually maybe not the best thing in the world because we've seen them all last year. They played a ton, so I'm not sure. They'll get better, but I don't know if there's room for like a huge leap. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'm not sure they're going to be able to be good enough on offense to be a true like national title contender. Sure, they can win the ACC, but national title, I'm not sure that's in the cards for them with that offense. So best team in the ACC preseason, but that's about it maybe for Clemson.
Yeah, I agree. Unless DJU really turns it around, or Kate Klubnik is immediately great.
Right.
It's hard to see national title, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the overall list here. I think looking at this, after Clemson and maybe NC State, there really isn't much separating quite a handful of schools, like Miami at 3rd to Wake Forest at 6, maybe even Florida State and North Carolina. Those teams have a lot of potential. So if Clemson's offense struggles again anywhere near like it did last season, then there are 6 or 7 teams that have a chance to win the ACC or at least make the title game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look back like a few years ago, and it was just kind of like, obviously it was just Clemson and everyone else, and the ACC was kind of not necessarily a laughing stock, but it was just kind of almost an afterthought. But to me, the whole top half, or maybe a little more than half, was just so incredibly difficult to rank. Like 2 through 8, you could put almost in any order, and I wouldn't scoff at you. And I think overall, there's also not many cupcakes. Like 9 through 12, you've got Boston College, Virginia, Syracuse, maybe even Virginia Tech. They're all capable of beating some of those teams in that second tier of the ACC. So it's going to be fun to watch week in and week out in conference.
Man, guys, yeah, I'm thinking this is the conference that it's more wide open to win than any other conference out there. Like if you go as far as you go down in the conference, Michael, you talked about this one team, Boston College. We have them at 9, and you were like, they could be pretty good, depending if Viljakovic is healthy. We saw Pitt and Wake Forest in the title game last year. I mean, they were, Pitt in particular was not supposed to be higher ranked, and Pitt, Wake wasn't either. There's no reason to me in my mind, like, why can't Boston College be one of those teams this year? Why can't they be Pitt or Wake Forest this coming year? Dracovic is good. The defense was actually pretty decent last year. Should be even better. I think it's 9 deep as far as teams that it'd be somewhat of a long shot for Boston College to win it, but I could see it happening. It's not like totally out of the question. I'm going 9 deep on teams that, it wouldn't have been like the most insane thing I've ever seen to win the conference. It's by far the most open as far as the Power 5 conferences go.
I don't know about by far. I think the Big 12 would give them a run for their money as well.
I disagree.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get to the Big 12 next week.
Okay.
So yeah. Be sure to subscribe, and we can continue this conversation.
I mean, if you talk, Big 12's only got 10, but I think percentage-wise,
I feel like 9 out of 10. I feel like you can go 9 deep in the Big 12. I mean, once you get to 9, it's pretty unlikely.
Iowa State, come on. Iowa State does not have a chance after losing everything.
It wouldn't shock me now we're talking about the Big 12, but it would shock me if they made the title game.
Texas Tech has no chance.
Zach Kitley? Come on. I don't know.
No. No. Texas Tech, Kansas.
All right.
Iowa State, no way.
All right. Well, all right. I guess you got Boston College winning the ACC. No.
No,
I'm kidding. That'll do it for this episode of the College Football Bros. Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the ACC is the most wide open Power 5 conference? Let us know. You'll be the judge. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.